All right, welcome everyone. Thanks for taking the time this evening to spend time with Agribest Feeds, learning a little bit about our sea minerals and volcanic ash for soil health. The way we like to always start out is with our mission, and what our mission is to enhance lives, and we do that with uniquely better products and superior customer service. So as we get going today, one of your biggest questions maybe, and probably is, you're a feed company. Why are you talking about soil health? Well, that's a good question, and I'm glad you asked. So we'll start out, and kind of my history or interest or connection with soil health is kind of like a whiteboard. And so we're going to be using a whiteboard here this evening to kind of explain some of the things of why we are, if I can get the whiteboard to come up. Oh, there we go. To kind of explain how we came about connecting on the soil health side things. So first off, it starts out with our mission. Our mission is to enhance farmer and ranchers' lives. And that mission basically started with my father-in-law when he started Agribest Feeds way back in 2006. In 2004, Bob Thornburg, the creator of Sweet Pro, came and talked to him about utilizing this uniquely better product for cattle supplementation. And mature cattle on average diet will eat up to 25% less forage and perform better. And this Bob Thornburg wanted my father-in-law to market this. Well, that was too good to be true. And so my father-in-law just kind of filed it. Bob came back the next year and talked to him again. And he said, I'll try it out on my cattle, try it out on his cattle. And it was true. He found that feed efficiency, and in 6 weeks, his hay was lasting 28% longer. So that's kind of the background. We started a family business with that. Myself and my brother-in-laws and my father-in-law started this business, and we're out marketing the Sweet Pro, value added. Nobody has anything like it in the marketplace. And lo and behold, at one of the trade shows, Irv meets a Redmond rep. So the Redmond rep talks to Irv and says, hey, some of the trade shows are pretty slow, and a lot of times the vendors are just talking to each other. So Irv's talking about our program and kind of our footprint. And I was Brandon Foote, who was the Redmond rep, talking to Irv about Redmond natural trace minerals. And Irv talked about Sweet Pro and how it's a complete supplement, has everything in it, has salt in it as well, but we always recommend having salt out on the side. And Brandon said, well, it might be a good thing that we work together and you market our product as your salt product. So Irv calls and talks to myself and my brother-in-law, Daryl, and he says, what do you guys think about marketing Redmond salt? And my answer was, we don't want anything to do with it. Salt is salt is salt. Salt's a commodity, and it doesn't match who we are as far as value added and uniquely better products. Well, you can see how much weight I carry, or we carried in the company at that time. And so we're marketing the Redmond salt. First semi-load that we sold was for soil application on hay ground in central Montana. This was a bit surprising, or a lot surprising to me personally, because my understanding is you put salt on your hay ground and you're going to sterilize your ground and ruin your hay ground. And so what I ended up doing is calling our rep at Redmond and said, okay, what's going on? Either this guy's crazy or I'm missing something. And I believe it was Aaron at that point who I was talking to, and he said, well, Scott, you're missing something. And he gave me a couple of books to read. And so the books that he gave me, one's called Sea Energy Agriculture by Dr. Maynard Murray. And that's just really focusing on the value of all the nutrients in the sea and how that can connect with agriculture, whether it's farming or ranching and the value of all of that, those minerals, and how that can actually help support life and improve health. And some of the crazy things he talks about in that book is that like a lot of your degenerative diseases and things like that on animals in the ocean, they don't have any of those, the cancers and all that kind of thing. But when you get into freshwater fish, they begin to have some of those degenerative diseases and things. And I'll talk a little bit more about that book as we go along. And then the other one was Salt Your Way to Health by Dr. David Brownstein, talking about how unrefined salt, the salt that has all the plethora of minerals still in it, is very beneficial to health. So all that saying, I've gone from salt to salt to salt, salt being a commodity, to now I am personally a salt snob. So you'll see me carrying my little salt shaker around and kind of fully bought in to the principles of the value of Redmond salt. So now we're marketing the Redmond salt along with with our Sweet Pro. That's kind of our two main products that we're marketing. Back at that time, we've since brought on our AeroQuip livestock handling equipment. But one of the things that we did early on was a webinar on soil health and utilizing the Redmond products for that soil health. And out of that webinar, one of the big talking points, I used to be a pastor up in a little town in Circle, Montana, up in northeastern Montana. And one of my friends there's a farmer, and I had invited him on the webinar, and he said, yeah, that was pretty interesting. I'm not so sold on the whole concept, but what they talked about is increasing the nutritional density in your plants, and as pest resistance, and especially for grasshoppers, and they always have an issue with grasshoppers up there. And so he said, I'd like to try that product and see what it will do on in my wheat. So we did some trials, and this is kind of the Gackle farm there in Circle, Montana. And on the left side, they did 85 pounds of urea on everything. And then on the left side, on that strip up, they did 50 pounds of 1152. And at that time, this probably dates us a little bit, but there was about $700 per ton. And then the Redmond SR 65, which is the volcanic ash, 2/3 volcanic ash and 1/3 sea mineral, at 50 pounds per acre head-to-head trial. And let's just see how it works. So one strip up and back. And results, the bushels went up by a little over 10%, and the input cost was half. So on the fertilizer side, so that was something that was very intriguing. And he went on and he did another couple of trials for us, but some significance in what we're actually seeing out in the field. Then we've done some Redmond for soil health tours. Redmond's brought on a kind of a soil specialist here. I suppose it's been 6 or 7 years ago, and we've done a number of soil health tours, and that's kind of begin to broaden our understanding on soil health. And soil health is such a complex and system and hard to understand. And then we've gone to a number of soil health seminars. So I want to throw one up. This is from the Soil Health Academy. Kind of your 6 soil health principles, knowing your context, your situation. We got people on here from Kansas, Wyoming, Nebraska, Montana, Utah. We got people all over the place. Every context is different. And even on your own farm, there can be different contexts, a lot of times even in the same field. But knowing your context, Minimizing mechanical and chemical disturbance, maintain cover and builds surface armor, biodiversity. The importance of that, we'll get into that a little bit more, keeping living roots in the soil, and then integrating livestock. So there's a number of these different seminars and different things that we go to, have a lot of great information. But what I want to do is kind of tell you my whiteboard keys, because I just as almost as blank as can be, knowing zero about plant health and soil health, other than my brother was a farmer, and so I always told him to plant the green side up. And that's about as far as I understood. But I did have this. I believe that this is God's creation, and there's systems in place, and the value and how those systems, and if we can work with nature, with the way God's created things, that will go better for us and for what we're raising. And with that, God's given us wisdom to help improve those things and to steward those. Secondly, I've learned that, you know, if I'm looking for animal or human health and performance, that goes back to the nutritional density of what they're eating. So the plant health, and then of course, that's all being supported by soil health. So that whole system of how that comes together. And then I've already talked about this a little bit, but the plant nutrient density. So the more nutrient dense the plants are, the better quality they are, the better they taste, more disease, pest, even frost resistant, and the significance of that. And then this was the one that really kind of caught my eye, because it gave me something from the AgriBest feed side to kind of hold on to and try to and being able to understand what's going on in the soil. The soil is similar to the rumen, and being able to focus on the microbes. So on our it's in the program livestock webinar we had last week, we talked about this very thing, the two symbiotic herds out there, the four-legged ones that we see, but then also the microbial population in the rumen, and the value of that host animal and how it controls the right environment, the water, pH, food, etc., and keeps all of that, brings in the food for those microbes, and then the microbes in turn break down that feed and produce things that the animals need, the tools that they need to grow, their immune system, reproduction, all of that kind of stuff. And that microbial protein, when they do their job, but then when they're spent, they're the best protein source that there is for a cow. And I failed to mention this in that webinar last week, but a cow is very excellent at producing protein. They actually produce 10 times the protein that they bring in. And a lot of that is because of the microbial protein and the value of what those microbes do to that animal. So we're going to take a look at that same principle, same philosophy as the symbiotic relationship between your soils and your plants and the microbial population in those soils. So the soil providing the right environment, your pH, the water, air, nutrients, all of that for those microbes that are living in the soil. And the plants are bringing nutrients in for those microbes as well. And those microbes are taking all of that, doing what God's created them to do. Some of them are breaking minerals down into different things that are more bioavailable for other microbes or for the plants, building soil health, aggregation, all that kind of stuff in the soil. And then when they're spent, when they die, they're an excellent source of building organic matter. And you've got your nitrogen value, carbon value, as it builds back up in the soil. So that was a significant light bulb event for me. And so helping to better understand the soil. And then it would have been a year ago, about a year ago, February, that I went to the Montana Soil Health Symposium, and every one of the seminars I went to was talking about diversity and the value of diversity and balance, and how the more diversity, the more diverse plant types that are there, the more diverse grazing habits, animals, nutrients, all of that diversity is a big thing. And then of course I'm thinking, well, on what I understand of Redmond, that is what Redmond is all about, is diversity on the nutrient side. So as we start to kind of marry some of those things, of the whiteboard things, with Redmond and how it can help support some soil health. This is the Redmond mine. And as you can see, this is just a solid sea minerals. There's 60 plus naturally occurring trace minerals, and they're just mining this down. Our understanding is that there's 2 salt mines in the world that have the plethora of mineral still intact. Himalayan salt over out of Pakistan, and the Redmond mine down in Redmond, Utah, in the United States. And so the importance of all of the minerals as they work together, in that book I was referencing earlier, Sea Energy Agriculture, Dr. Maynard Murray says a quantitative analysis of the elements in blood has essentially the same profile as a quantitative analysis of the elements found in ocean water, including large amounts of sodium chloride. So that balance is so important to life in general. And then the form that the minerals are in crystalline form, he talks about that being the most bioavailable form of mineral that there is, because it can dissolve in liquid and penetrate through cell membrane, animal and plant cell membrane by itself. It doesn't have to be connected with something else. So very, very bioavailable, balanced. And the other salt mines, there's a lot of salt mines in the world that are like walking into a snowball. You just have sodium chloride left in there. All the other minerals have leached out. Or dirty salt, where you have salt and dirt kind of mixed together. But this mine is, they drive big trucks down through here, and they're mining a honeycomb down. I guess Carson can let us know on how deep they're down there now, but I believe it's about a mile. It's right on the surface at Redmond, but it goes down about a mile deep, and it's vertical there. And one of the things that they think may have protected all the minerals from leaching out over time is this layer of volcanic ash that lays right on top of it. And so this is, I'll refer to this as Redmond's 1-2 punch, the sea minerals and the volcanic ash and how they work together. But the volcanic ash is, once again, 60 plus naturally occurring trace minerals. All of those rare earth minerals that were in the earth when the volcano exploded, and then they're now in colloidal form, and that's a available form, but it's a lot slower and a little bit more difficult to get to for the animals and livestock there. Oh, hi. Hold on just a second. Jim, just don't run the back. Okay, thanks. All right, sorry about that. All right, where were we? So the volcanic ash there, and then we've got a powerful rumen buffer and toxin binding, and it boosts some feed efficiency on the livestock side. But we'll also see that even the toxin binding is happening in the soil as well. And the rumen buffer, that buffering the pH, is also a soil valuable for soil health. So with that, I'm going to just swing over to our website. So this is just agribestfeeds.com. And we don't need to be the admin, so we'll log out. Sorry about that. Agribestfeeds.com, and on the home page, I'm just going to go down here to the soil page and click on that. And what I want to do as we talk about this is to have a reference, a resource to go back and take a look at, and as we go through here. But once again, as we look at our goal to enhance farmer ranchers' lives, the healthy soil produces healthy plants, higher Brix levels. We'll talk a little bit about that. I think that there's some excellent wisdom here. The Lord Almighty is a wonderful teacher, and he gives the farmer great wisdom. So I think as farming, there needs to be wisdom applied to all of our practices and our decisions as we make that. So we start out with a three-part aspect of soil health. We show it here as a puzzle pieces. I've heard it described as a three-legged stool, and all of these have to be kind of in the right balance and working together to be to have optimum performance. And I'll start out with the physical characteristics. So your physical characteristics, those are like your soil types, the pH, temperature, your water carrying capacity, and then also your being able to hold water and air. You've got your organic matter, all of those things, aggregate size. The physical aspects are very, very important to your soil, and different soils have different physical attributes that we kind of treat differently and work with that. But then secondly, we've got the biology, so the life in the soil. And the life in the soil, that runs from the worms that are able to basically break down rocks into something that is able to be utilized by the microbes in the plants. And then all the way to your bacteria, your protozoa, your fungi. All of that is all that life in the soil. And the life does a lot. The physical aspects of it is important to the biology, the right environment for the biology to be there. But then the biology also helps build a lot of those physical characteristics. And then the part that we really bring to the table is helping on the nutrient side, a wide diversity of nutrients to help support that life in the soil. And so the soil is the foundation of life. So healthy soil produces healthy plants, healthy animals. We talked about that a little bit. Every piece of that puzzle is important to maximize the genetic potential on the plants and animals. And then diversity. So this diversity is, there's over 100 elements on the periodic table, and each of them are important to maintain and sustain life. And I just gave some examples here. As far as a healthy society, you need the lawyers, the teachers, the plumbers, farmers, ranchers. You need all of them. The diversity is so important, and healthy soil needs the diversity of both nutrients and microbes. But then also we need balance. So the balance of those nutrients are very important, because if you just have a whole lot of plumbers and nothing else, the society would end up collapsing. But a society with no plumbers is also not the greatest. So The healthy soil needs a balance as well. And one of the things with farming that has kind of gone in the area of just really focusing on NP and K as far as fertilizer, and not really looking at what else is being mined out of that soil. So any crop, any if you're taking hay off of a meadow, all of those nutrients are being mined out of the ground and then removed. And then what's coming back? How is that soil being rebuilt? And there's a lot of research out there, whether it's looking at our vegetables or grains or whatever, that over the last 80 to 100 years, the nutrient density of those of the fruits and the vegetables have decreased greatly, and a lot of that's because of the minerals not being there in the soil and not being taken up into those plants. This brings me on to the focus on the microbe side. Once again, we've already talked about that a little bit. On the cattle side, the importance of focusing on the microbes for their health, but also on the soil side, we see the importance of the microbes in the soil. Once again, them doing what they do, getting the right environment to that they multiply. There's more of them. They in their society or do what they do, and then of course when they die, then that increases your organic matter, carbon, nitrogen, etc. So now that brings us to our, once again, to the Redmond products and how they're a great foundation that naturally supports good soil health. So the C mineral, there's two parts: the mined C mineral, and the C mineral has that 60 plus naturally occurring trace minerals in crystalline form. But one of the big things on the soil health is the electrical conductivity of the C minerals. The C minerals, electrical conductivity is kind of that spark of life, that ability to move nutrients back and forth. And the C minerals are excellent at that. And that's important to all of life, to the plant life, to the microbial life that's there, and supporting each of those little microscopic animals. They need the minerals themselves as well. So the value of those minerals, but then what they are able to do and moving with the electrical conductivity. Secondly, you got the volcanic ash, and the volcanic ash, once again, 60 plus naturally occurring trace minerals in colloidal form. And it's very high in cation exchange capacity. And that's basically the ability to hold and release nutrients over time, especially your positively charged or negatively charged, oh boy, anyway, cations, and then also water. And so that's one of the things we've got had a application in South Dakota that we did here down by Faith, South Dakota this last fall. And it was been really, really dry down there. And we put on the SR65, and she was very intrigued that her alfalfa had kind of gone dormant, but it started to green up where we had applied the C minerals and volcanic ash. So excellent little 1-2 punch for the soil, the C minerals and volcanic ash working together. And then some of the things that we're seeing on that is faster and healthier plant growth, better color, higher yields, resistant to insects and disease, frost resistance. And then a big thing is being able to dovetail and work with your fertilizer and chemical herbicide programs, and potentially use less and be able to reduce some of those costs. This is a great little 6-minute video that I'd recommend you kind of taking a look at. This is a alfalfa field here just west of Billings in Laurel, and very interesting because this ended up running as a trial that was both a irrigated and dryland situation, and just seeing some of the regrowth and things that happened with that field was very interesting. So as we look at what products to use, basically, as I break down the soil types, the sandier the soil, we recommend the SR65. Heavier soils, if you're really heavy clay, go more towards the SR50. The SR65 is a 2/3 volcanic ash and 1/3 sea mineral. The SR50 is half and half. If you're doing foliar application and going through a pivot, or even if you're running a sprayer, we would recommend using just the sea minerals for that, and about 4 or 5 pounds per acre on that. Spinner spreader, we can use SR quartz products with an air machine, or mixing with other fertilizer. We recommend the screen products. So these are how the products look. So this is a fine, the SR65 fine. That we use that quite a bit in like in feeding cattle or feedlot situations, that type of thing. It doesn't spread all that great. That's one of the problems that we had early on, is how to handle the product. And so they ended up coming up with taking, and it's called the SR65 course, and they took the volcanic ash and they kind of chipped it versus the just the powdery thing. So you got more variety of sizes on that, and that works really good with a spinner spreader, broadcasting. But if you're getting into like air machines or mixing with other fertilizers, we recommend the SR65 screen. Costs a little bit more. These two are the same price, but the 65 screen is about $30 more per ton. Basically, there's a chart on some application there, but in general, if we're looking at the SR65 or 50 on a dry application, we're looking somewhere in that 100 to 200 pounds per acre. Go ahead, Carson.
I was just going to add on the 100, 200 pounds. I always get people ask, well, how much do I know if I should be 100 or 200? And I usually will say depends on your rainfall. If you're 20 inches, I say 100 or 150, something like that. If you get above 20 inches, you could put 200 to, easily. So kind of look at your rainfall situation. If you're irrigated, 200 is a great number. But if you're in a dry climate like where I live, where I get 9 inches of rain a year, or 9 to 7 inches of rain, then do 100 pounds, something like that. Is that clear?
Yep. No, excellent. Thanks. And then, yeah, if you're in with a like that, my friend Gary was using a air drill, and so he was putting it, I think 2x2 in with the in furrow there, and so he was run at 50 pounds. So you can kind of adjust some of that, and we got some agronomists on the call here that they can help, and Carson definitely can help working in some of those areas. If you guys just using the volcanic ash, you can do that, but we really recommend the sea minerals working together for the reasons we talked about above. Foliar application, like say about 5 pounds per acre, 3 to 4 times throughout the growing season. And then our seed results are SR65s or SR50 products come in bulk or 2,000 pound totes, and we can get some in 50-pound bags. The 50-pound bags are more just the fine product at this point. And then there's a couple of quick videos that Joe actually did. We sat down and there's a couple parts that you can go through and tells us kind of the story once again. And then some of the trial information is down here at the bottom. And so for that, I'm going to just pop back to the presentation and just run through some of these things that we've seen and noticed. And we'll take questions here at the end and kind of work through that. And Carson can help me field some of those. So as we're looking at some of the results that we've seen, this is on grass, the nitrogen and carbon, the mineralizable nitrogen, you see it went up by about 9 pounds per acre on the grass, and the carbon, you see the difference there versus control NPK. And in corn silage, you see once again a boost on the on using Redmond, once again both on the nitrogen side and carbon side. Organic matter increase and cation exchange capacity increase. So seeing that over controlled fertilizer from year 1 to 2, and then again in year 3. This is interesting, talking about focusing on the microbes. This trial was looking at this beneficial bacteria and the fertilizer. They found 16 of these, whatever those units are. Probably got some agronomists on here that could help me out with that. But the Redmond had 57. So what is that? 3 or 4 times the amount there, which is significant. But interesting enough, the protozoa count went from 0 to 32,000 plus. And that's that relationship of getting things balanced out, and where that then produces that nitrogen potential pounds per acre. Parasitic nematodes, we see that the total is less than half, which is significant. So feeding the good guys, getting the right environment for the good guys, wrong environment for the ones that are parasitic. Feed quality, seeing TDN going up, relative feed value going up. Yield, this is 0.2 tons, so that's 400 pounds, significant. Feed quality as far as foliar spray on alfalfa. Interesting, of all those numbers that are going up, that increase once again that the nutritional density of that alfalfa. And you see the relative feed quality and feed value. Corn silage, TDN, starch going up. Yield was down the first year and up a little on the second year. One of the things when we're looking at, we don't have a lot of nitrogen in, or there's just trace amounts in, but what's happening with that to help support that, one of the things that where I've come, I guess in my own opinion, is maybe being able to reduce your commercial fertilizer by maybe 25%, something like that to start out with. Add the Redmond in to kind of work together, and I think that's where we get our biggest bang for the buck on the fertilizer side, soil amendment side. Once again, the toxin testing and the value of I think especially the volcanic ash, that's helping out with that, reducing toxins in the corn silage. And then this is kind of, well, the pictures there are fairly significant. The difference on these turnips with and without. The bottom one, of course, has the seed mineral program on it, and just the size and color and density of that. Pretty interesting. And then kind of in general, some of those nutrient increases that Redmond has seen over a lot of the different trials that they've done. A lot of these are just farmer trials and gathering that information and working on that. So thanks for your time, and we'll open it up for some questions here. I know we've got our panel on the online here. We also have another webinar next Monday night. It's in the program for equine. If got any horse interest or focus, that'll be a fun program to webinar. You can sign up on our website right now. That's up and live, the registration is. And then we just added this understanding natural extracts, and that'll be the tendered. Somebody did not do a good job of updating, copy and pasting. Should be the 10th, April 10th at 6 p.m. And that will have Tom McCullough, and he'll be talking about the natural extracts and the value of that for insect repellent, for livestock, horses and things, and then the natural, the stress blend and how that can help with gut health, heat stress and those types of things. So sign up for those on the website. That registration will be open tomorrow. And then I'm going to stop my screen share here and go back to our panel. So we got our panel here and are open for any questions. I see that Brittany Bolte is on here. She's an agronomist from down in Nebraska, so she can definitely help us out on kind of more in-depth questions. So yeah, well, open up for questions or comments. You can either type your question in or just raise your hand and I'll unmute you. While we're waiting for that, I guess introduce Carson there again. Carson's with Redmond, and he was on quite a few of these tours with me. And I guess some of your thoughts there. What are some of the things that have stood out to you on the soil health side of things, Carson?
Cool. Well, I'll show you. I just had a cool sample. This comes from about 1st of February. I got this. It's actually a customer of your guys's that is in somewhere northeastern Montana. So he did two fields right next to each other. One of them he put 125 pounds of SR50 on per acre. And then the other sample he put 85 pounds of urea on. So he didn't put any nitrogen on the SR50. He just did one thing and then the other. We got his hay test because I said we really want to see your hay test afterwards, because that's where you can really see how healthy your plants are, is not just from a soil sample but from a hay test. When he sent in his hay test, he had 22 points increase in relative feed quality, and about that and then he had a 10-point increase in TDN. So really impressive numbers. And as I looked at his soil tests, he did soil tests. The tests that he put the SR50 on had more available potassium, phosphorus. There was a lot of cool changes that happened. So yield doesn't always tell all the story. And when I asked him how the yields were, he said they were very, very comparable, and he spent way less money on the Redmond trial. So really impressive. But we see that all the time. So
excellent. Thanks for that feedback. We got a couple questions here. Let me see. Brent, I'm going to allow you to talk. Go ahead and unmute yourself. and let us know where you're from. And
I'm from Northwest Kansas, and I just had a couple questions on, you touched on one slide, you talked about the organic matter, an increase in organic matter. And would somebody like to talk about that just a little bit? Is that a significant number? And also, what about soil pH? See any changes in that way at all?
You want me to take that one, Scott?
go right ahead.
Okay, so he showed you the graph. I can't remember the exact number of increase in organic matter. And organic matter is not very easy to increase, so it is pretty significant to do that. On the pH, we're not really changing the pH of your soil, but when the microbes are working, at a high, they're working efficiently, you see pretty miraculous things happen in your soil. But I wouldn't expect you to see a change in your pH at all. So,
And a lot of that's the amount that you're putting on is,
minuscule.
I mean, you're at 100 pounds, 200 pounds per acre. It's really hard to move the needle on some of those, but the organic matter, a lot of that's coming through, that the quality there, but then the microbial population as that's being.
So what you're doing is you're giving a spark to the microbes in the soil, which are actually breaking down the stuff you leave over, and it's actually turning to organic matter. So, but it is that the numbers on there are actually pretty impressive for changing organic matter. Usually you have to really change soil practices to change organic matter. So just increasing it that way is pretty impressive.
That answer your question, Brett?
Yeah, thank you.
All right, I guess you'll have to, I'm not sure how to put your hand down, so you'll have to probably do that. I did bring, I think I brought Brittany, I tried to bring you over, Brittany, as a panelist. I don't know if I can do that, but she would have some good feedback on that.
Can I answer the Cody's question real quick that just popped up?
Yeah.
So he said he lives in northeast Montana where they have high salt in their soil, or northeast. So the test that I told you of the guy that had the really cool increases in feed quality and stuff, if I would have honestly, if he would have sent me his soil sample, I would have been a little nervous about putting it on. I usually recommend, if you look at your soil sample, your soluble salts is below 5%. And his was at 15%. So he was at 3 times as much as I usually would recommend you to put on. And he still had really cool increases. So I want you to remember, and Scott touched on this, that not all salt is the same. So if I was going to put out a highly like white salt that has been processed and gone through processes, then yes, you would see some really negative impacts. But our salt acts so differently than white salt does that, unless you're up in like 15%, I would not put 200 pounds to the acre on it, 15% soluble salts. But you'd probably be fine. Just take a soil test and send it to Scott or one of your AgriBest guys, and we'll look over it and we can help you with that. But usually you're fine. We're putting so little on that you're not going to change your soluble salts by that much. I hope that answered your question, Cody.
All right, so yes, yep, you can type the questions in Q&A there. Greg, we'll go up to you and I think we decided Kalispell, huh? Kalispell, Montana. So other side of Montana.
Yep, I'm in the side that rains more than the other side.
Well, there you go. That's the wheat crop of 35 bushels probably doesn't look all that spiffy for you guys up there.
Not generally, no. So a couple quick things here. Just I'm very curious, and this is some interesting stuff. I am a big soil health guy, and we've done a lot of things to improve soil health and different products. But my biggest question for you is, When you're in a high production area like myself, for example, we're cutting 3.5 ton to the acre, one cut, grass, hay. My removal is so much more than what 100 pounds or 150 pounds of this product would be. So how would a guy like myself that's in, whether it's high production hay or we're looking at 100 bushel wheat crops or 50 bushel canola crops, how would you suggest to transition the amount of product I would need to put down to keep up with those nutrient requirements that those crops, would need? I mean, it's a 25 bushel crop needs way less than a 75 bushel crop, right? So what's your thoughts there?
So, to answer that, most of our research that you saw that Scott was showing was actually done in Wisconsin. And I would assume that I bet 80% of the soil products that we actually put out on the soil is going to Pennsylvania. So that's probably going to be a lot closer to what you're at with high yield crops. But I would recommend 200. You can even go up to 300 pounds to the acre on and like really high yielding fields. But I don't know how to exactly answer your question, but I would say that we've done a lot of research on really high productive crop areas, like I said, in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin and in Iowa, things like that. So, and those, the sweet spot's been 200 to 250 pounds on really high producing fields.
I appreciate that. So the question would be then too, would I mix, conventional fertilizer with that, or would just pull it all the way out?
Perfect. That's a perfect question. Okay. So what I usually recommend is to wean yourself off commercial fertilizers if you're going to do it. So add whatever Redmond costs and take that out of your nitrogen budget, and then put the rest of it in nitrogen for your first little while and do some tests that way. But I don't recommend on crops that are really nitrogen hungry to just take nitrogen out. But if that makes sense, so if this cost you, I don't know how much it would cost per acre in your guys's with freight, but anyways, if it costs 25 or 30 bucks an acre, take that out of your nitrogen budget and then put the rest of your have the same nitrogen budget, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, thank you.
That's usually what we're doing, and that has been pretty successful. So, and then guys pretty much that's when they'll start seeing, okay, I can cut down 50% of nitrogen. The only time you got to be really careful is corn, because corn, if you're raising that, corn really requires lots of nitrogen to produce what it's going to do. So
I think one of the other things that we, suggest, I mean, like say back on your context, what you're doing, being able to do some different trials, if you're able to, do some strips that you're able to say, okay, what kind of response do I get at 200 pounds per acre and or 100 pounds or 150 or even 250, like Carson's saying. And a lot of this is the kind of my interest in that's kind of the principles behind it. How can we come alongside and help our producers and get more out of what you already have there? And I think that's quite that's possible. And then, working with your agronomist or, for yourself, it sounds like you're pretty keen on the whole soil health thing and understand that. So being able just to watch, that's what we talk a lot about on the feed side of things is, how's your cattle performing? What type of performance are you seeing in the health side of things, and reproduction and average daily gain, all those different things that you see on the crop side.
So that's really wise, Scott, because a lot of people, like you see the yield increased. I have seen it when our products address the limiting factor of their soil. I've seen huge yield increases, but a lot of times you have other limiting factors, like it could be phos or calcium. So the main things that you'll see is plant health will really increase. So if you're doing a test, make sure you take forage samples of both tests and see the difference. The other thing is to really pay attention to like pests and weeds, things like that. Those are really good signs of healthy soil and healthy plants. When the pests are eating the one and not eating the other group, which I've seen that. Those are good ways to kind of have a good parameter of your test.
Well, and that's one thing that I guess I've noticed, and maybe I'd like to, try some, but it's not always about yield either. I mean, yield is a good thing. But if I can cut the same amount of yield or same amount of bushels on $20, $30, $40 less, it's still a big win, right? I mean, I think a lot of times we get too focused on you got to have more yield to pay for something, and that's not necessarily true. I mean, it's just not. So I see that all the time. But so just one last quick thing then, would Ty be kind of like my contact guy or up here in Northwest Montana, or is it how would I get a hold of product?
You can, so the Ty, you invited him on, or Ty, are you talking Ty Jones, or who are you talking about?
Yeah, I know Trig through one of the boards that I'm on through MSU. So I invited him on because I knew he was a soil health kind of a guru there. So however works best for you, Trig, we can make whatever work. So
yeah, we got some dealers kind of spread out. We can get you kind of connected there, or just direct on the Agribus Feeds website there. There's a find a dealer, but we can also help you out directly. Ty's one of our regional sales managers, so he can work with you, and we can get you a product delivered directly to the farm.
And Trig, I hope I said your name correctly. Okay. If you want to, and Ty can get a hold of Redmond, and we can even look at soil samples on a Zoom call together, whatever we need to do that way. So you have lots of support from us too. So.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
So any other questions? We had another, let's see. Okay, Carson. Oh, Carson, you're good.
It's pretty impressive. Usually people leave with more questions when I'm done. So.
Well, there you go. You're good. Brittany, do you have anything to kind of feed into kind of our discussion, or any of those questions there? Brittany, we got connected maybe 3 years ago down in Nebraska on one of those soil health tours, and we really look up to her and what she brings to the table. And
yeah, thanks, Scott, and good to see everybody. Which I finally got that figured out on. I don't know what the heck's going on with my phone, but I couldn't see it.
Uh-oh.
just like that, we talked her up big, and there she went. Oh, anyway, okay. Any other questions here? We don't want to keep you too long, or anything from the other panelists. The panelists on here, a lot of our regional sales. Any other questions? Just raise your hand. Oh, there she is. She's coming back.
Me and technology don't get along.
Okay, you're back. I can hear you. I can see you.
Okay. Anyway, now I can see all of you guys. I couldn't there for a while. I was like, where did everybody go? Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah. There's just so many things, and it's such a huge can of worms on soil health and what Redmond has with the salt and the conditioner. For me, it's just, we have to remember that it's not a full-blown replacement for your commercial fertilizer program. It's an add into, and yes, like Carson and Scott said, it's weaning your soils off of that commercial fertilizer. And I think a little goes a long way in multiple applications. So maybe that's 2 or 3 applications of 100 to 150 pounds per acre, because the salt and the conditioner is a carbon food source for your biology. So that's what you're feeding, is you're feeding that biology, which then your biology is releasing your phosphorus and your nitrogen. And that's what feeds into what the plants are able to take in, thus resulting in yield, feed quality improvement, all of the things. It's a full systems approach. So wherever you're at, find an agronomist. My big recommendation would be an independent agronomist that's not selling fertilizer. And if you're blessed with somebody that's focused on soil health and passionate about it, that's diving into cover crops and incorporating animals in grazing or even manure application in that, that's a huge recommendation from an agronomist to any producers, is find somebody that does that, because it's a full systems approach and it's a big world. And we're right here on this webinar, we're looking at like this much of it. So, and it's awesome, but it can get overwhelming. Just try a little bit, do some trials. Got a trial on my horse pasture this year with some Redmond screened mixed with some Pell lime, which is pelletized ag lime that's out there on the market, versus the fertilizer retailer's normal fertilizer meadow program. And we're going to do some feed testing, and probably won't really be able to do a yield test on it, but feed quality is what I'm going for on that side of it. But yeah, anybody that's got any questions for me, Carson and Scott know how to get a hold of me, and don't be afraid to holler.
Awesome. Thanks, Brittany.
Brittany's
Yes.
awesome too. She's really good.
Yes.
And that's what I was gonna say, that, rather than talking to maybe a local dealer, it's probably best to talk to somebody at AgriBest that can get you in touch with Carson or Brittany or somebody that can kind of, because the soil deal is a different animal, and if they don't understand it, you're probably better off to kind of talk to somebody out of the office, and so we can get you to the right person.
Sure. Greg, you had another question there?
Yeah, I did. Real quick, couple things. I am very fortunate to have one of those independent agronomists that is really into soil health. So it works really well for us. But yeah, two things. We do a lot of work with people that want organic fertilizers, and that has been something that is almost, I'm not going to say impossible, but it is a mess. It's expensive. I hate dealing with it. And so we tend to not do it. I don't have an option. So we do a lot of stuff with organic gardens, people that move into the valley that, they just want to do what's right for the soil. And so they want us to come seed some grass, but they have no clue on what to put down for fertilizer. And to be honest, I didn't either. And so two-part question, is this something that is Omni certified organic that I could use to do this with? And second of all, that's kind of a three-part question. The second part is, can we mix like grass seed if we were going to spin it on through a spreader or through a brilliant drill or seed it in an air drill? Can we mix grass seed right along with it and spin it right on out, or does it need to be separate applications? And then the last part of the question is just that. We do a lot of we go rent the spin on fertilizer applicators to do our own. And so I just, there's settings on there. So I'm just curious if anybody, we decide to go this route, how we can set those. They're all based off of commercial grade application, and we start messing with stuff like this. How do I set a spreader, or is that the right tool to use, or should I have an air machine, custom apply it? Thank you.
I'll answer two of those, and I think I'm gonna have Brittany answer one. So yes, it is OMRI certified, and we can get you any OMRI certificate you need.
I was gonna
Second,
answer that one.
that was the easiest one. And I can't remember right off the top of my head, but I have the bulk density trig, and so I can give you the bulk densities, which is what you actually set the spreader on today. I actually just went and applied
74, something like that, 73.
Yes, it's pretty heavy. Yeah, so it's in the 70s. That's what
Okay.
I feel really bad because I literally went and spread some on my pasture today with the co-op's cart. Anyways, but yeah, you just you just set it off the bulk density and I can get that to Scott, or Scott probably has it, but it's in the 70s. So,
Okay.
and then Brittany, I've had a lot of people put it out with seed like that. I feel if you're broadcasting, I feel like it's better than if you're putting it right in this furrow with seed, which I don't know if I would do that, but like broadcasting it and then running a harrow or something, would that be, you feel like that's pretty safe, Brittany?
Agreed. Yeah. I mean, I've never, if you use this fine or the screen product would run through the drill fine. But, and I suppose depending on the drill, the one grower of mine ran it through his strip till bar a couple years ago. He blended it in with his regular fertilizer and he put it on that way. So he got along fine, as far as in furrow application. With seed, I think just because I like to err on the side of safety, if you're going in furrow with the seed, either it needs to be such a minuscule amount. My fear is that there is just enough salt there that you could affect germination. And depending on your soil and weather and all of that kind of stuff, it could probably be fine, but I would say no. Broadcast wouldn't scare me at all.
Right. So like if it's going through an air machine or a spreader to be, yeah, then you're probably fine.
Broadcast with your seed, whatever it is, that wouldn't scare me at all, because you're not going to have that direct, in furrow is right there placement with. It's no different than we have to watch our regular commercial fertilizer rates in furrow, for starter and whatnot, corn, soybeans, anything that way. So yeah, that would be, I know it's not your true typical salt like commercial fertilizer. That's the beauty of the Redmond, but I would hate
in
to have
furrow. In furrow does make me, I'd broadcast it every day of the week, like on my own place. I'd be a little bit more nervous having it right in furrow just because it is salt.
Yep, agreed.
Another thing on that.
Hope that answers your questions.
Depending on what you are using, I mean, if you're using the SR65 as an example, as opposed to just the direct salt, there is, less of a chance with that. So I wouldn't see any, the volcanic ash isn't going to have any negative impact on that seed. Is that correct, Brittany?
Yeah, your conditioner isn't gonna, because that's
It's
just
the salt,
play. Yeah.
So it's the sea mineral salt side that is the question or potential. And I'm actually going to do just a trial. I'm actually just in a pan and just see what kind of results happen, just planting right side by side with some salt and anyway. But yeah, that I hope that answers your question.
Very well, guys. Thank you. Yep, very well.
All right.
And let us know your results too, if you would. Share them with Ty, if you would.
Yeah. Unless it goes south.
I'll be the first to know then.
Then you tell Ty. He's also a complaint.
Yeah, there you go. Ty's your guy.
So
excellent. Well, any other questions? I don't want to keep you here this evening, but any other questions anyone has? We want to make the best use of our time here. Anything else from the panelists? And I think we got the questions all answered. Tiffany, I think that was sure she's from Wyoming, so that's good. We got most of our state, or a lot of states taken care of here. Well, thanks, guys. Tune in next week for it's in the program, equine seminar and a webinar. And then, like I say, we did just get the natural extract. So if you've got questions about garlic, the cinnamon cloves, chili peppers, how we utilize that for insect repellent and gut health, make sure you tune in on April the 10th. And thanks for attending this evening, guys. Have a great night, and we'll talk with you later on. Thanks.